Coming up, after a recent outbreak of mumps on the Edinburgh campus, the university's health department holds a conference to discuss the disease. Immigration centers are asking for the public's help with asylum seekers. Activists at the front line of the humanitarian crisis are invited to speak at a conference held on the UTRGV Edinburg campus. And to celebrate Autism Awareness Day, the American Medical Student Association hosts a fair on the Brownsville Campus. Plus, we tell you the schedule changes taking effect this coming 2019-2020 academic year. We have all this and much more. UTRGV-TV starts now. Thank you for joining us on this week's UTRGV-TV edition. I'm Nathaniel Puente. On this week's top story, after a recent outbreak of mumps on the Edinburgh campus, the university's health department holds a conference to discuss the disease. I went out to get the story.
If you are sick, if you feel you're sick, stay home.
UTRGV sent out an email to students and staff that a case of mumps was present on the Edinburgh campus. The initial aftermath saw panic among students.
My friends in class were like, well, where are we safe to go? Who has it exactly?
To inform students on the subject, the university's health department and the UTRGV School of Medicine spoke to UTRGV student media about the dangers of mumps and the importance of vaccines.
Most people are vaccinated, but even though they received two vaccinations, your immunity can wane over time. If you came into contact with a student or were in a class with them, we're going to recommend that you get a booster to boost up your immunity.
Rick Gray, who spoke at the conference, confirmed the virus's origin and mission. He urges students to check vaccination records and practice good hygiene.
Because the easiest way to get most of these diseases is shake somebody's hand and then do this. Cleaning your equipment's the best thing you can do. Personal hygiene, washing your hands, hand sanitizers.
9 cases of mumps have since been reported in Hidalgo County. More are expected during this outbreak. According to CDC.gov, the mumps virus is seeing a sharp increase in recent years. Universities are prime targets for the virus due to the large amount of people in the area. For more information on the mumps virus and how to remain safe during the outbreak, head over to cdc.gov. To celebrate Autism Awareness Day, the American Medical Student Association hosted a fair on the Brownsville campus. The purpose of the fair was to provide awareness for autism and inform students on disability services.
I think it's important to let students know that they are not alone if they have autism, mental health problems, disabilities. There's always someone here in the university who cares about you. For example, let's say you have dyslexia and you don't have enough time to complete the test. Well, you can contact Student Accessibility Services and they'll help you take the test monitored in a room and you would be allowed more time to take it.
The RGV has slowly gained limelight as President Trump continues to push for border security. Immigration centers are asking for the public's help with asylum seekers. Our reporter Marisol Villarreal brings you the latest from Brownsville.
At the start of the year, Customs and Border Protection has seen an increase in migrants seeking asylum in the United States. But as those numbers continue to increase, so do the shelters that are trying to lend a helping hand. In Brownsville, asylum seekers who are waiting for their right to a fair trial in court are dropped off by CBP. Various cultures come together at one place.
Once that's taken place, the people are brought here.
Marianela Ramirez Watson is a volunteer board member at the Good Neighbor Settlement House in Brownsville. She's in charge of making sure migrants are well taken care of.
We register them here. We give them hygiene kits, toothbrushes, feminine hygiene products, diapers, wipes, shoelaces, whatever they need.
Ramirez Watson tells UTRGV-TV that before CBP reached out to them, the Good Neighbor Settlement House sheltered the homeless. Now, with the recent influx of migrants entering the United States, they share the same home.
And none of them have had their services taken away or can say they're not getting all the services. They always have. That's a big misconception. They get 3 meals a day here. They can shower here every day, 5 days a week, and get a clean set of clothes. We have a clinic, and everything is free.
CBP drops off buses with asylum seekers during times that the Good Neighbor Settlement House doesn't have many volunteers around. Random surges of migrants can overcrowd the house. Ramirez Watson is asking for the public's help.
We wish we could get more volunteers in the afternoon between the hours of 1 and 6, and on the weekends we'll be needing Saturday and Sunday volunteers. So if you work during the week, want something to do on a Saturday and Sunday, please come join us.
The Good Neighbor Settlement House is still currently allowing for the public to donate snacks and other food items. In Brownsville, reporting for UTRGV-TV, I'm Marisol Villarreal.
Activists at the front line of the humanitarian crisis with asylum seekers and refugees from Central America are invited to speak at a conference held on the UTRGV Edinburg campus. Our reporter Juliana Quiros is in the studio to tell us more.
It was an all-day event with speakers coming in from several pro-migrant organizations, including the internationally known Executive Director of Catholic Charities of the Rio Grande Valley, Sister Norma Pimentel.
This couple of weeks, the numbers have skyrocketed like never before.
Known for her service to the massive numbers of Central American families coming in through the South Texas border, Sister Norma Pimentel set foot on UTRGV ground, giving her testimony on how she became involved in the religious life.
And my mom even said, ¿Te vas a monja o qué? And I said, ¿Y que si hago que sí, no es cosa de Dios?
And why she has committed her life to the thousands of families who seek refuge here in the U.S.
I cannot go to sleep every night knowing that I have not done my part.
Pimentel was one of the many panelists invited by Dr. Jose Villarreal, a faculty member from the Department of Sociology. We spoke to him previously, and he tells us the call for the development of the event was for UTRGV to understand the suffering of migrant families after he says the conservative media has been showing only one viewpoint of the subject.
We need more information, and we need to also stimulate interest in the plight of migrants so that perhaps we can have a more sensitive, a more humanitarian outlook on the whole situation of migration.
He says he wants people to become open-minded about the fact that the Central Americans are enduring forced migrations.
And lots of times we don't evaluate these migrations as forced migrations, just merely as illegal people coming over and trying to get asylum.
Something that President Donald Trump has opposed, saying that they are, quote, illegal migrants trying to make their way into the United States.
Any law that destroys life is not a good law, so we must speak up.
As for Pimentel, she tells UTRGV-TV she was trying to convey that as a part of the human race, we all have the responsibility to defend and protect life. Dr. Jose Villarreal, the organizer of the conference, tells us he wished there would have been more faculty and students in attendance, but hopes that those that attended become advocates for the moral treatment of migrant families. In the studio for UTRGV-TV, I'm Juliana Quiros.
There will be schedule changes taking effect for the 2019-2020 academic year. There will now be a 15-minute gap between the 3-hour lecture periods, 3-hour lab periods, and 5-week summer terms instead of a 10-minute gap. We will have the detailed standard class meeting times on our website, and if you have any questions or concerns, make sure to visit U Central in your respective campus or contact the Office of the Registrar at registrar@utrgv.edu. Drug overdose deaths by opioids are at a sharp rise across the country. Our reporter Rocio Villalobos spoke to the director of Palmview's Reset Counseling to find out how the RGV community is being affected.
Between 2014 and 2016, fentanyl-related deaths doubled each year, with fatalities among the Hispanic population increasing at an annual rate of 118%. This information comes from a report by the National Vital Statistics System examining 5 years of drug overdose deaths across the country. The report also determined that the largest rate of increase is among those between the ages of 15 and 34.
When you look at the curiosity of what it is to get high or what it is to get drunk. And then you end up in an age group where a lot of people around you are experimenting.
The outpatient counseling center specializes in ages 12 to 17, but Resenda says they have admitted children in elementary school. While there are misconceptions of what a drug addict looks like, Resenda says addiction can only be defined by having withdrawals from the drug, a tolerance for it, and being affected in one's day-to-day living.
We do a lot of lecture through our curriculum that we use, and then we also use everyday activities that get these kids understanding that, that it is very possible that you can hang out with kids your age, and we're not high today.
He says the most common drug abused by Reset Counseling Center's patients is marijuana, followed by cocaine and prescription or fentanyl-laced Xanax. Fentanyl is a controlled substance prescribed to treat pain, but according to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, the majority of fentanyl overdoses come from a form of the drug produced in labs and mixed into other drugs. Reset Counseling Center encourages the public to remove the stigma surrounding drugs by becoming educated.
But we're not talking about it because of the mentality that addiction is what they say in Spanish, a mania. In other words, that it's kind of like just something that you can get over, where a lot of the time if it is someone who is affected by what is an addiction, then it's not as simple as somebody who can just stop from one day to the next and just never use ever again.
If you or someone you know is in need of treatment for substance abuse, you can find help by calling the Drug and Alcohol Addiction Hotline at 866-965-4903. Reporting in Palmview for UTRGV-TV, I'm Rocio Villalobos.
The CHAPS program hosts a community event with lectures, reenactments, and a documentary commemorating the Rio Grande Valley Civil War Trail. Here's the story. On April 9, 1865, the Civil War came to a close. 154 years later, the Rio Grande Valley Civil War Trail continues to commemorate the events of that war.
Civil War is one of the most important events in American history, and it's one of those events that, literally affects almost everything that we do on a daily basis, from the sizes of our clothing to the way in which the clothing is made.
The CHAPS program, which created the RGV Civil War Trail, hosted a community event to celebrate public history. The attendees were greeted to lectures from historians such as Samantha Bernard, who made the trip from North Carolina for the occasion.
I think it's really important to remember this multicultural area and how much it comes to play in the history of Texas.
Confederate and Union troops set up camp to display weapons and food used during the Civil War. While the two sides remained peaceful during the event, tensions were high for a few loyal reenactors.
But what we're out here to do, like I say, is to educate people that there were two sides. The Confederates weren't racist.
The event concluded with the documentary Just a Ferry Ride to Freedom. The War and Peace on the Rio Grande exhibit will be on display in the Edinburg Visitor Center until June 19th. Here are this week's police reports, released to us this past week by UTRGV-PD. Back on March 28th, it was reported that a backpack containing a laptop computer and other personal property was stolen when left unattended on the second floor of the Edinburg Library. This is a UTRGV PD update. Detectives were able to identify the 41-year-old suspect upon reviewing video cameras. The suspect has a long criminal history and has previous arrest history with UTRGV PD. Detectives, along with patrol officers, obtained arrest warrants for criminal trespass, a Class B misdemeanor, and repeat state jail offender, theft, a third-degree felony. Detectives obtained a search warrant, and upon making entry on April 1st, the suspect locked himself in his bedroom and refused verbal commands to exit. A detective forced entry into the bedroom door, and the suspect was placed in custody. A search of the residence produced no findings. A family member later produced the stolen laptop computer taken that was being kept at a separate location and was returned to the owner. The suspect was later jailed at the Edinburgh City Jail. The suspect at the jail claimed to have a medical condition and claimed to be suicidal. After being medically cleared by hospital staff and a mental health screener, he was cleared for incarceration. The suspect was returned to the Edinburgh City Jail without further incident. On April 3rd, officers responded to the UREC in reference to 3 suspicious males attempting to climb the fence by the pool. 2 non-affiliated males actually scaled the fence and entered the UREC facility. The third male, identified as a student, claimed to have let the two non-affiliated males into the building, bypassing the building's check-in area. Both non-affiliated males were issued criminal trespass warnings for the UREC, and the male student will be referred to Student Rights and Responsibilities for further review. On April 4th at approximately 4:51 p.m., the UTRGV Police Department received a delayed report of an assault at the UTRGV Library second floor located in Edinburg. The reporting party stated an unknown male approached her at the library, initially engaging in conversation, then continued with unwanted touching of her breasts without her consent. The reported conduct meets the definition of forcible fondling, according to federal guidelines. And here's this week's sports highlights with our station manager, Ileana Luna.
On this week's sports highlights, we've got women's tennis head coach Han resigning after the season, and both men and women's golf. First up, women's golf moves up fourth after defeating Kansas City Monday, April 8th. The girls shot 12 strokes and opened with a score of 309 in 7th place. A second round moved them to a tie for 4th place with a score of 297. Next up, men's golf climbed their way up to 7th spot, sitting in 11th place. The men were in their second round of the Cowboy Classic when facing other schools like UTSA, Southern Utah, and Northern Colorado. A 13-stroke improvement in the second round tied them with Southern Utah with a score of 579. Northern Colorado is 10th place and Utah Valley in 9th. And last but not least, women's head tennis coach is resigning once the season is over. Sonia Han has decided to become the Associate Athlete Director for Sports and Administration and Senior Women Administrator at Southern Utah University. Fellow UTRGV colleagues wishing Han the very best and of course congratulating her, and will be dearly missed by UTRGV Athletics. That does it for this week's sports highlights, but to keep up to date on full schedules and tickets, visit goutrgv.com for the latest. Reporting for sports, Ileana Luna.
That's all we have for you today. But remember, if you have a story you would like for us to know about, or know someone who is making an impact on campus or in the community, you can contact us through our social media or email us at utrgvtv@gmail.com. We have community and UTRGV news for you every week. See you next time.